All right, I think we're live. We'll have to see. I'm gonna mute this fun thing and we're gonna get started. So, hey guys, I almost feel like I need to say welcome back to myself because it's been all right. I think we're live. We'll have to see.
And I can hear
I'm gonna
myself
mute
now.
this fun thing and we're gonna get started. There we go. Issues. Okay, so little technical difficulties, and maybe I'm just a little rusty. Maybe that's the theme for today. Hey guys, it's April Schluter of the Cheerful Mind, just coming back after lots of vacation, definitely feeling a lot of vacation hangover. It's been about a month and a half since I did my last show because I was in Alaska and Colorado. We had the 4th of July, went to Wisconsin, celebrated my anniversary. There's just a lot of things that have been going on. And I said a while back that I was going to do this really cool Alaska video, which I am still in the process of doing, but I had to give myself some slack because I really do want to enjoy my summer and not spend it all working. That was a huge thing that I wanted to prioritize while during the summer. So I am just giving myself the cutting myself some slack in terms of just getting things done when I can get things done, even though I'm typically seen as the person that gets things done. I'm in the midst of a lot of little projects, and they're probably all going to come out early in the fall. But in the meantime, I'm having such a great time spending time with my family. And today I have an amazing show and just getting back into the swing of things. And I'm excited to have all of you here checking out the show. We're going to go deep with my friend Jan Keck. We'll be here in a second after I run the intro. So welcome to Cheerful Conversations. I love that music. All right, we are here and we are live. Hey, Jan, how are you doing?
I am amazing. It's so nice to share the screen with you today.
I know, and I missed you this summer at our awesome conference that we have met at the last couple of years. So I'm definitely excited to get a little bit of the World Domination Summit love, which I'll talk about that in a little bit. But just wanted to, again, welcome everybody for coming on to Cheerful Conversations. Today is episode 12, and our theme for this episode is going deep, and we'll talk about exactly what that means. But I will introduce you to Jan Keck. He is a dear friend of mine. We met through World Domination Summit a couple years ago. We didn't get to talk as much the first year in 2016, right? But we definitely,
no, I think it was we literally exchanged maybe one sentence or like one moment, and then we connected online and got to know each other. I think online more than in person.
Yeah. And I think that's the key, right? When you're at a conference with, anywhere between 500 to 1,500 people, you're only going to be able to connect so deeply. But then you get these opportunities online and just afterwards to really take the relationship to the next level, friendship, whatever you want to call it, and go deep and get to know each other. And so I know that you did a video challenge. That was what really brought us together and got to see some of that fun stuff. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But we got to do that. And then we got to just really hang out in 2017 for a bulk of the time and just spend some time together and connect during all the fun activities. And so, yeah, it's just great to have a friendship that is lasting through it, even though we live so far, because Jan, you live in Toronto, I live in Chicago, and it's just a great way to.
That far.
I know it's not that far, but it's still like I can't walk there.
Far. Yes.
I laugh because I have some friends who live just down the street from me who I can literally walk to their house, and I probably interact more with people who live farther away than people down the street. It's just funny how that happens, right? So. But anyways, Jan, why don't you tell everybody what you do?
So what I've done for the last 5.5 years is I ran this video marketing agency focusing mostly on helping businesses, personal brands, and aspiring thought leaders to connect with the audience through video. That's where we ran the video challenge, just helping people get more comfortable with video as a medium, overcoming the fear that might be holding them back from sharing their message. And then over the last year, I feel like I've kind of gotten away from helping people connect through online with their audience and helping people connect in person with strangers, with people that they want to get closer with through these cards that I created, which I called Ask Deep Questions. And it's like this analog way of connecting where we actually turn off our phones and you're 100% present with the other person. And this has kind of turned into its own little side hustle now, trying to make it a main hustle.
I know, I love it. And I would definitely suggest that everybody get these cards. It's still on my list of things to do. And I will buy them. I don't know why. I just so many things right now, but we're going to get to play along with those a little bit too. And you guys all know that I've been using another different deck that's super similar called Vulnerability is Sexy. It's actually a game, but I'm just using the questions because it's good for it's just good for having conversation, and I've used them in all of my shows thus far. So we're going to play around with some of these, and that's kind of where we will go deep. But thanks for sharing that. And then we already talked about how we met. And one of the questions that I ask all of my co-hosts is, what is something that you geek out on? And maybe it's something that people don't typically realize about you, something unique and maybe not work related, because usually most of the people I bring on the show are people who are geeking out on the things that they're passionate about. So what is that one thing for you that you geek out on?
Like, aside from having meaningful conversations,
yes,
which is taking over a lot of my life right now, which I love.
Yes.
I love getting out of the city. So I live in Toronto. I grew up in Germany. Toronto is a huge city, and it's really hard to get out in nature sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I just love taking my wife, my cat on camping trips, canoeing trips, but really going off the grid, where you don't have cell phone reception, where you have to portage, meaning you have to carry your canoe from one lake to the next, and then you paddle through that lake, you portage to another lake, and the further you go, the less people will be there, and the more beautiful the stars will be at night, and just focusing only on the things that are pretty much like a survival thing, that like you have to find shelter because if a storm comes or if it rains and you don't have a shelter, like you might die. Maybe small chance, but it's possible. You have to like make a fire and cook your food on it. And it's one of those places where I feel very grounded very quickly.
Yeah.
Because it almost feels like in the city, everything's moving so fast. And then you get out there in nature and it takes a couple of days, kind of like stepping off a treadmill, where you feel like, wow, I'm still like breathing really fast and your pulse is going really fast. It will take a couple of minutes before your body adjusts. So I sometimes need to do that and just get away from the city and spend some time in nature.
I love that. And, so that makes me think about when I was in Alaska, people love going, doing stuff like camping and just like living out in the wilderness in Alaska. And not to say that this is something that I could do. Maybe I'm a little bit too much of a diva for that. But I admire people who have the mental strength to do that and like live on just the bare essentials. And we were watching a bunch of these videos talking about how people would go through Denali National Park and they would bring, just everything in a backpack, and how they had to make sure that, their food wasn't being attracted by bears, and how to stay safe and how to walk through. And it's just crazy to think about how, you have to do some of these things in order to live, but it's very, very different from the busyness of the city. And so, it's definitely something. My kids were like, I want to go hiking and in the mountains and look for bears. And I was like, do you really?
Maybe not look for bears.
I know. But they were like, we want to go back. And I was like, okay, that might be a bonding thing for you to do with your dad. And then I'll be here like trying to get some work done or something. But yeah, it's crazy. And I just love the fact that, the stuff that nature brings. And just like you were saying, like when you go from like busy city lifestyle to just the bare bones essential, like in nature, it takes a while to get adjusted. Like I can't even after a day of not having my phone on me, I'm like, ah, but then I get used to it. But it's almost like an addiction, and like you get into this withdrawal because you're just so dependent on it. But anyways, that's awesome.
But then before you go back to the city, you don't want to turn on your phone again.
True.
I feel like if I don't go without technology or internet, my phone for a few days, I don't even want to turn it on, because I know that there's probably tons of messages and things that I've missed, and I just get sucked into this vortex of messages and things that I don't necessarily want to think about right now.
Totally.
I just want to keep staying in that mindset of I'll just stay in the present. I don't have to worry about things that are going to happen tomorrow. I don't have to worry about things that happened yesterday. Let's just like focus on this moment. Like right now, all we need to do is find firewood, make a fire, and eat. And once we've had something to eat, it's probably dark and we're going to go to sleep. And then the next morning, we're just like, it's so single focused when you're out there that really clears my mind.
Yeah. And half the time, if you're trying to check messages or respond to things or, while you're on a vacation, it's just not, it's almost like you're half present in both things, right? It's like you're half there on vacation, but then you're also trying to deal with whatever else is happening at home. And, trust me, if there's something that's, there's a dire situation where somebody needs to get a hold of you, they will find a way to get a hold of you. So there's not to worry about that. And I, while you guys were at World Domination Summit, I'm sitting here in Alaska having spotty internet, and I'm like, oh my God, I see notifications and they're all going to my email, and I'm just going to have to figure it out when I get there. But that tiny little trigger of like, I wish I was there. Still, it made me miss it. But at the same time, I was like, you know what, you only go to Alaska how many times in your life? Like, it's not something that you can do, all the time in the way that we were doing it, and experiencing nature in ways that you can't really see. And so I was like, all right, I'll get to it when I get to it. And I had a hell of a time getting back into the real world when I came back from vacation, but it was totally worth it because I enjoyed my trip so much. So awesome. Great. Okay. What are we talking about next? Okay. Random icebreaker question. So let's just do this because this is part of the thing. So as everybody knows, here's my vulnerability is sexy game. Similar to
I hope at one point there'll be a deck of these ones on your
desk. So I'm gonna switch over to yours like after this. There's just so many. So
I have some vulnerable questions in there too.
Yeah. Well, so what's interesting about this game is that there's different things. There's like vulnerable questions like on an orange card. So there's different levels of how deep these questions go. The icebreaker questions are the blue cards, which is what I'll pull out. Then there's actually there's some other things that you can do here, but there's also another stack of cards that I don't have in here because I actually tried to bring them on vacation with me to ask, and they're actually like funny questions. They'll ask just like random, like goofy questions, and so I'll have to go through those as well. But the icebreaker questions are always good. So I'm gonna pick one at random, and we can both answer it. Sound good? All right.
Let's do it.
Ready? Describe your favorite piece of clothing. My camera's trying to
focus.
Describe your favorite piece of clothing. All right, go.
I'm gonna pick something that is hanging on the side of my desk.
Okay.
If I can pull it down. This
bow tie. Yes. Okay. Explain why.
This bow tie cost me like $10. It's not a fancy bow tie, although it's golden. It was not an expensive thing, and it has like the clip, like it's not a real bow tie. But I bought it for my wedding, and I wore it for the first time at my wedding. And I got married in Germany with my wife, who's from Colombia, and we had our families meet for the first time when we were there.
Aww.
And after the wedding, I was like, well, I could use that bow tie more often. This was actually the very first bow tie that I ever bought. Nice. And I started wearing it at like conferences, networking events, adult summer camp that I go to. And it almost became this thing where whenever I wear this bow tie, I would have so much gratitude for like all the experiences that I'm having. Mm-hmm. And suddenly I was getting all these compliments from random people, sometimes even strangers, when I'm walking down the street about how they love this bow tie. And to bring it back to the World Domination Summit, last year I decided, hey, let's do a bow tie meetup and just see if there's more people that have a bow tie with them. And we had like 6-7 people show up.
That's cool. So cool.
This year I did the second annual bow tie meetup and we had 20 people show up.
Holy cow, it became a trend. I love it.
So I'm hoping that maybe we've been talking to the concierge, Jed, who is also a big bow tie lover, if he can make the bow tie a part of the gift bag of their what they give away to the conference maybe one year.
That would be awesome. And there's only 2 more years left. So
exactly.
So they've got to act fast. Oh, awesome. So I was trying to think of, when I try to figure out how I'm going to answer this question, I was like, I don't really know. And I was thinking about the functionality of different pieces of clothing. So I might say I enjoy dresses because it's just one piece and it's very simple, but I can only wear it during the summer. But then when you were talking about the bow tie, I'm like, okay, so that's an accessory. So maybe accessories count. I'm like, is it any of my jewelry, blah, blah, blah. But it's gotta be the fedora, right? I feel like that's gotta be my favorite piece of clothing or, anything that you wear, because it has become such a big part of my branding. And I'm trying to even remember where it came from. I think it has to do with a trip I went to Vegas in like 2013. And I somebody had me like wear their fedora and I was like, I want my own fedora. And then I ended up buying them, and like, lo and behold, I think somewhere back behind there, you can't see it in this view, I've got fedoras in all different colors. And so I actually wore, for the 2 years of WDS, that was like the identifier of like, oh, that's the chick in the fedora. But I saw a lot more people wearing fedoras the second year that I was there, but I'm like, hey, that's okay. It's totally fine. But it's definitely something that you see, even in my intro video, that was a photo from WDS, but it's just, when I'm having a bad hair day. And I actually wore it for most of when I was in Alaska. It's become a staple in my life. So that's probably my answer to that question. So
I can really associate with that. There's like a stack of hats up here.
I see it. Yeah, I love it. I mean, and it's so easy, and it actually just like makes you look decent, even though probably what's under there, at least for me, not for you necessarily, but for me, it's just like, oh, my hair doesn't look good right here, so I'm just going to put a hat on it. And then it enhances the look even more. So yeah. Awesome. So that's great. We have broken the ice with our first question. So before we dive into this whole concept of going deep, we're going to probably throw out a lot of these big cards, or these vulnerability cards and deep conversation cards. Let's talk cheerful news for a second. I know that it's been a month since I've done a show, so having to go back and look at what's going on in the world lately and scouring for positive news has been interesting. I found an article, so I'll just start if that's okay. I found a random article, and I love articles like this because it's kind of focused on goal setting and breaking the paradigm of what we expect to see. But I have an article that I found, and this is funny because I don't know how it showed up, because I have it. When I look at the article date just now, it says it happened in 2015, but it just happened to be in an email that I was subscribed to. But it was about this 11-year-old boy, which I guess then he's now 14 years old. He had earned 3 college degrees and has an eye on the US presidency, which just was really, really interesting. And he had 3 associate's degrees at the age of 11. I mean, I think about my son who's 9, like, he's not even ready to have associate's degree. It was this super, super bright guy who lives in Sacramento. I feel like I need to go and look him up now, because I'm not sure how I came across this super old article, but it's just great to show, what you can accomplish if you put your mind to something, and that, you don't have to follow the typical path of doing anything. And I just always love those types of stories because, a lot of people in our society tend to just assume, certain things go in certain places. And it's an inspiration to me, because I think a lot of times I look at things that I want to do and I'm like, no, I'm too old. I can't I can't do it. I have too many priorities that conflict with that lifestyle. I can't do it. And when I see things like this, I'm totally just inspired to try something different and go for it anyways, because we absolutely should. So, all right, what type of news did you find in the world?
So I didn't actually start looking for a news story until earlier today, and Toronto had some pretty bad news in the last few days. So I really wanted to find something positive that has happened like very recently.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, first thing I found was a good news section at one of our like main Canadian news channels. And I was looking through it, and the most recent article was from 2015. So it seems like they hadn't actually continued posting in that like good news section, which I thought was kind of disappointing. But I found this other article about these three guys who had saved a blind person that fell on the subway tracks.
Oh my gosh.
And before the train came, there actually three of them that didn't know each other jumped kind of on the tracks and helped him get up before the subway train actually arrived in the station. And it's interesting how one of them was a new immigrant that just had like arrived in like the last month from Ireland in Toronto. The other two people also like very different backgrounds. Like those three people would probably in most places not appear in like the same picture. But the article talked about how they met with the mayor and he thanked them for their service. They got a 1 year free metro pass to use the subway from the Transit Commission. And it's this nice little like local hero story. And in the interview, they were talking about it was not a big deal. Like anybody would have done what we did. It was such a quick decision of like you hear somebody crying for help, and of course you go in and help. That's at least what they said. I don't think everybody would actually go and help. It takes some courage to actually go and do that and pretty much risk your own life to save someone.
Absolutely. I agree.
So it was great to see that there's actually three people who kind of by themselves decided, yes, we need to like jump in. And I'm sure that whoever was the first person was the most important one. Because as soon as you see somebody else going in, it's easier to follow behind.
Absolutely. I love that. No, that's good. So that happened recently?
So the article was from this Tuesday,
Okay.
where they met with the mayor and they got awarded like a year.
Oh, that's
yearly
awesome.
Metro Pass. I'm not sure when the actual thing happened. It might be like a couple of maybe, and it happened last week.
Okay. Awesome. That's great. So sorry, I brought a 2015. I'm like, I like this article. And then I'm like, wait, oh, it's 2015. This is just the theme in my life that I'm like, oh, I'm figuring out that I forgot a couple details, which is not normally my typical thing, but hey, I'm in summer mode and it's okay.
Yes.
So, all right, great. Thank you for sharing those news stories. And, you know, here at Cheerful Conversations, I think it's really important to look for some of these things. We've had, you know, the positive news is really the stuff that is going to inspire you. And sometimes the negativity that we see out there just kind of brings you down. So it's always been important to me to just highlight that there are positive news stories out there. You might just not be able to see them because they're hidden amidst a wave of negativity sometimes, but they're there, and there are great people, and we definitely need to highlight them more. So thank you for bringing that. Okay, so what are we talking about next? Let's go deep. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So before we start asking a bunch of questions, you and I were talking a little bit about just this concept of small talk. When you're trying to connect with a stranger, you know, sometimes it's just like you don't even really know what to say. And I know that I used to be somebody who just hated small talk. It was like, hey, what's going on in your life? What do you do? And it seemed very surface level. And I just, it's so interesting to see that, you know, there's such a, it really just forces people to like have trouble connecting when they don't feel good about that small talk. And so what do you think are some reasons why small talk is so unsuccessful in comparison to like having deeper, meaningful conversations?
I think there's a few things that people get stuck at. I've actually recently just started believing that if somebody asks you, what do you do? they're not asking that question because they're actually interested in what you do, but because they don't have a better question to even start with. And a lot of times I felt being asked that question was so upsetting to me, because I'm like, really, that's what you want to talk about? And I would like blame the other person for it. But now understanding it's maybe not their fault. That's just the way, especially in North America, it works. When you go to a networking event, when you meet someone, you want to just get a sense of who a person is. So you ask what they do so you can put them in a box. So as soon as somebody says, oh, I'm a lawyer, okay, I have an idea of who you are as a person. I'm a coach. You put people in that box. And unfortunately, the thing that happens is once you put people in boxes, they have a really hard time getting out of that box. So that's why I think I don't enjoy small talk, because it always limits whatever happens next. And a lot of times people, especially at a networking event, like a business event, as soon as they know what you do, might be not interested in connecting more, because they don't think that you could be valuable to their business or their goals.
That's totally true. And you answered that way better than I would have. But what really comes up to mind for me too is that sometimes, because obviously I'm a coach and I hate being put in a box. And I've had so much trouble labeling myself in my entire life because I do so many different things. And when people ask me what I do, I've been in this business for, this is my 4th year in this. And sometimes I still struggle with saying like, I'm a coach, because I know that it brings judgment. And, it's people don't really understand what kind of coach I am and how I differ from other coaches out there. And so there's that stigma that I'm like trying to, fight against, even though I am a coach, and that it truly is what I do. I want to help people achieve whatever it is that they want in their lives. And hopefully that means that they want to be happier and more productive. But in the methods that I coach, even though I went through certification and whatnot, I still have my own way of doing things. And when I was writing my book, even, I was like, I didn't even want to say I was a life coach, because I feel like it comes with this like, oh, you're a life coach, you're one of those people, and it makes me feel bad about myself, instead of being, actually being excited about the fact that I get paid to help people. It's crazy. So that is interesting. So if you were going to suggest a different question to ask, because I mean, I do ask that as part of my show, because it is kind of an identifier, but it is also because most of the people that I bring on the show are actually passionate about the work that they do. And so there's a lot of meaning there. But if you were going into some networking event where there might be so many different types of people who have different types of career paths, what do you think would be a better question to ask in a situation like that?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's important to have an answer to that question, because you'll always be asked that question, even if you start having more meaningful conversation, which I started having, and I start asking different questions. I'm not always the one who starts the conversation. So I still needed to come up with an answer that makes me feel good, and that maybe I can also let me share a quick tip on answering that question, and then what would be a better question to ask.
Great.
Because I feel like if you don't want to say that you're a coach, then don't say that you're a coach, and just share kind of who you help or what you help them do, and make it in a way almost so mysterious or intriguing that the other person wants to ask you, how do you do that? Or tell me more. Because then you can launch into an actual story, and you can shape it the way you want to, rather than having to answer that you're a coach. Because you could say, well, I don't know, depending on let's test this. What would you say, who you help and what you help them achieve, if you had to just say that without naming, without saying the word coach?
Yeah. So, I mean, I empower people to commit to a better quality of life while still achieving all of the success and being their true authentic self. So something like that. I feel like I say something different every single time, but my big focus is, how do I help you create more time to do the things that you love? How do you have more fun while getting stuff done? Like those are my little catchphrases.
I know, and I love that. If you just said, if somebody asks you, what do you do? And you just answer, I help people get more done while still, or get shit done while having fun. Just leave it at that. People most definitely will ask you, so how do you do that? And then you could actually tell, like, I think through storytelling, through telling stories is the best way to connect. I usually at that point get into the story, how I came up, let's say, with the cards. Or an experience that I've had recently using the cards at a event that I hosted. And suddenly you're telling stories and it feels so much less like business talk, and much better way to get to know people and connect.
Yeah. So here, but I think that one of the things that is coming to mind is, you know, that when they have like those speed networking things where you don't have a lot of time to say what you want to say. And maybe you can still use this, you know, without labeling yourself as a particular, you know, type of role or type of career. But saying, you know, here's what I do, and then just leaving it at that, then all of a sudden you feel like, wait, I can't even finish my conversation. But maybe that brings people to the point where they're like, oh, I still want to talk to that person more because I'm not really sure what they do. So you kind of have to play with it. But, you know, sometimes they're in those networking situations, there's like a time crunch, and how can you know, some people might just want to cut to the chase and be like, I'm a coach. So then the conversation's over. But maybe that's
the whole thing. Like, I'm not a huge fan of speed networking or like having those shorter conversations. If it is intriguing enough for someone to say, hey, I want to talk to that person at the end of the event or follow up with them afterwards, and that's so much more meaningful than having given them the box to put me in that I don't want to be in.
True. Totally true.
Yeah.
I love that. So smart. Okay, so what would be something, since
a different question,
that we could ask instead? So if we could start to kind of take control of this small talk, but lead it into a direction that's better, what would that question be?
So all the question needs to do is put the attention on something the other person actually wants to talk about. So the reason why I don't like asking, what do you do, if I don't know somebody yet, is because they might hate their job, and that's the least favorite thing that they want to talk about. So usually a slightly different question is, what excites you, or what are you passionate about? Because then they can choose, oh, I love going camping and out in nature. And that's has nothing to do with what they do for work, but that's something that they get excited talking about. And then all you need to do is what I call follow the light. You have to ask follow-up questions and just see what lights them up and continue in that direction. If they talk about camping, tell me about your first trip. Like, how did you get started? Like, where's the most favorite place that you went to? What's one essential thing you need to take on every trip? Like, there's so many interesting follow-up questions you could ask to continue like on that same route, if that is something that you're personally interested as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely, I feel like that the question of what lights you up, or, you know, at the end of the day, you know, what's the most important thing to you, and why, or something like that. But that might be a follow-up question. But those are typically the types of questions that I like asking, but I usually also tend to let people lead the conversation. So it always ends up being, so what do you do? And then I turn it around and I'm like, how about you? What lights you up? And it's really, really interesting to see how that works. So maybe I need to be a little bit more assertive and get my question out first.
There's one question I want to share that I started using at a event that I felt very out of place. I didn't know anyone, and it was all HR professionals, and I've never worked in corporate. And I felt like, okay, there's nothing I have in common with those people. That's what my thought was going in. But of course, you always have something in common with everyone. Yeah. If you just get to the deeper levels of conversations. But there's one question that I started asking people, which is, if we were going to meet 1 year from today with a bottle of champagne, what will we be celebrating?
Oh, I love that question.
Again, if it is people who are building a business, or at least like growth oriented, they love that question, because everybody wants to talk about the goals and dreams that they have. And if you can make it as specific as, we're going to meet in 1 year and we're going to celebrate, means it has been successful. So you making them think about something positive in the future. And I actually have said, after having had that conversation, booked like a calendar event with like a year from today, we'll meet at this restaurant and we'll celebrate. And I haven't spoken to that person since, from that event that was like 2-3 months ago. And we both were joking, wouldn't it be funny if we didn't talk for a year and then we both see that calendar notification pop up and we would just go, not having talked at all, and then see what has happened?
Yeah. I love that question. I might need to take that. It's such a great and easy question. I'm like, where can I embed that? And most of the work that I do, it is very forward thinking, like, what are you gonna accomplish in this year? And that's exactly one of the types of exercises that I do. I did this one workshop where I literally brought bottles of wine, and we're at a workshop, and I'm like, hey, let's just turn on the music and let's just pretend it's 1 year ago from now. And let's just talk about, we haven't seen each other in a year, and let's talk about all the awesome things that have happened since we last saw each other. And it's such a great activity. So
in a coaching sense, there's a couple of really cool things you can do. You could even, after, like, next time you see that person, get a bottle of champagne and print like a custom label with like their goal on it or what they said they will accomplish, and then just give it to them and say, you'll like open date, and put the date like 1 year from when they said it, so they have like a visual reminder of the goal that they set.
Ooh, I like that.
It's really cool. And the other thing you can do is asking people after they shared, well, where are you stuck, or like what obstacles do you need to overcome, because then it's a great way for you to figure out how you can support the other person.
Totally. That's all I do every day. It's like, well, what's it getting in your way? Let me help you get rid of that. So
yeah, and that's the best way you connect with people is like if you can find out where they're stuck, and if you can provide some kind of value, even if it's not necessarily advice, but maybe somebody you can introduce them to, or a resource you can send them. Everybody appreciates that.
Absolutely. Oh, I love this. I'm going to write all this down. Learning stuff. And, some of this stuff, it's like, yeah, that's in my mind. But that bottle of champagne thing, now all my clients are going to be like, where's my bottle of champagne? So you better start
the bill.
Yeah, start increasing the rates. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so let's just ask each other some questions and have some discussion. How do you want to do this?
Well, do you want to pull a question, and I'll pull a question from my deck?
So I'll ask you questions from my deck, and you ask me questions from yours. Is that how you want to do it?
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna go into the vulnerable stack just because your questions are deep, and these might be. So we have. I'm gonna pick at random. Or do you have specific ones?
Mine have 3 different levels too, from like curious to brave to vulnerable. But I think I will stay away from the vulnerable ones because they're probably a level deeper than your vulnerable questions. So we'll go with the brave ones.
Okay. So should I not do that? I don't know.
I don't know your questions that well, but I know that mine, like the vulnerable ones, they're usually you need to have like an hour-long conversation beforehand or a couple of drinks.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see where this conversation goes. Okay. Okay. So here's my first question for you. Are you comfortable with silence? Why or why not?
I've become a lot more comfortable with silence, especially thinking of that I'm participating in a speaking competition next week. Mm-hmm. And I think I used to say a lot of ums when I do public speaking, but believing that powerful pauses make whatever you deliver so much more engaging and impactful. I think I become more, now I'm super aware of trying to not to say while I'm talking. But since I learned that there's the thing called a powerful pause. After you do an important statement, you actually pause instead of trying to fill every little silence with something to say. That has really changed the way I see pauses or silence.
Absolutely. I've definitely always not been good with silence, but I'm trying. I think that puts me in this spin of speaking too fast. And so having to try to slow that down and being okay with the pauses is something that I'm definitely working on too. I don't know if I care enough about the ums anymore. I realize that when I'm actually speaking, I don't say it that much, but when I talk really fast, I will say, or, I say, a lot. So awesome.
Actually, my first podcast interview, I realized that I say kinda a lot.
Yeah.
Because I was not confident enough in what I'm saying. So I always used something that made it less powerful as it actually is. Yeah, I didn't have to commit as much.
Yeah. It's funny how we do that stuff. Anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question. Maybe that wasn't so deep.
that's okay. We will see. Okay.
Okay.
I got a brave question.
Okay.
What is one thing people always assume about you, and is it true?
I've been definitely trying to be a little bit more vocal about this year. And, for those people who have been following just anything I'm posting more closely, is I think a lot of people think that I have my shit together and I don't, not all the time. And, I love it the most when people look at me and some of the things that I am teaching others are the biggest things that I struggle with. So a lot of times, and maybe I'm just at a level that, I just have myself at such a high bar that I feel like I can't drop the ball ever. And so when I drop a ball, people actually enjoy it when I tell them that I screwed up or I made a mistake, because they don't think that I can do any wrong when I totally can. And I get overwhelmed and I get, I burn out a lot still. And it's just a matter of the intensity of it. I think 5 years ago, I let myself burn out and I was like, nope, I'm fine. Whereas now it's just like, oh, I'm getting there. I need to cut myself off. And so it's like, oh, like I'm gaining too much weight again. Not that that's my, but it's just that feeling of like, oh, I'm eating too many carbs. I need to cut it down. So it's like, I'm working too much. I need to cut it down. And it's funny because I have to tell myself to slow down. And it's so hard to do, because I'm so wired to just want to keep on going and going. And I love doing things. I love being busy. But then it's that fine line between being busy and then being overwhelmed that I have to watch. And so I am so much happier than I used to be, but I feel like people think that I'm in this nice little package and there's so many imperfections that I have about myself that I used to hide. And I just don't want to hide it anymore because I think people either resent me and think I'm too perfect or anything when I'm so far from that. And I feel like I don't want people to think that there's like this unrealistic piece of me. I do have my own flaws and all of that. So I'm not perfect and I want you to see it. So that's my,
yeah. And thank you so much for sharing that now and for sharing those posts, because I've been following you posting more of the raw, vulnerable things. And in a society where we all post our highlight reels to social media, and anybody that doesn't feel good about themselves who's scrolling through social media just thinks everybody has their shit together except me. I think that's something that is super, super important and more people need to do. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because in my group this week, we're talking about failures, and our friend Gary, he posed the challenge of, every time you have a fail, like just bow or say ta-da. It's like an improv thing. And so we have this long string of, here are all the fails. And yesterday I was trying to cook macaroni and cheese, and as I was pouring the stuff into the boiling water, I dropped the box and everything spilled. And so I had to stop, and there was macaroni all over the floor and all over the stove. I'm like, okay, I really messed up, but this is me going too fast again and trying to do 50 things at once. So I was like, ta-da, okay, let's just slow down now and let's clean this up and cook and eat and stop everything. So yeah, I definitely don't have my stuff together all the time.
Nobody has.
Nobody does. So it's just kind of like, hey, let's flaunt the failure. And I feel like I'm slowly starting to realize that part of my mission in life is to be able to be vulnerable like this when it's kind of painful when I do talk about it. But I'm getting more and more comfortable with saying, hey, I'm not perfect. And then when I make mistakes, it's like, okay, is, what are you thinking? Are you thinking less or more of me because of that? And where does that come from? Because I think I used to keep everybody else at a high bar too. But still myself, like super way higher than everybody else. And so when other people would make mistakes, I'd be like, it's totally okay. But I couldn't make that same mistake. And so, yeah, I'm going to make those mistakes now, and I'm going to let you see them. And I might be cringing inside, but I'm going to tell you. So, yeah, for sure.
I'm sure that people who will comment and share and like get impacted by what you share, that's like, you don't even know how many people might actually be impacted, because not everybody comments and likes posts online. Like I've noticed that too with sharing things. Even at the World Domination Summit, I shared something with someone last year on like the last day. And this year I met him again, and he's like, thank you so much for like what you said on the last day. It changed my life. And I'm like, I don't even remember that we had a conversation.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so we're going to continue to put ourselves out there, and vulnerability is sexy.
Exactly.
Okay. Do you want me to ask you another one? How much time do we have? We have 15 minutes. Okay. Maybe we can get through 3 questions. Okay. I want to just pick one at random. Okay. Do you want to do this one? This is...
Well, let's do it. I can't read it yet.
Talk about the last time you made a substantial life change. I know that's a little blurry, but...
Well, which one?
I know.
The one life change is that I'll be a dad this year, actually in a few months.
Yay, congratulations.
A substantial life change that one part of me feels like I'm not ready yet. And the other half of me is like, no, this is what I need to level up. Like, this is the challenge that I need to actually improve a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think nobody is ever ready to have kids and go through all of the different stages of life. So as somebody who has a 9 and a 7-year-old, I think that the big thing to know is that you'll figure it out, and there's nothing that you can do to, that's so terrible that is going to impact. I mean, there's always going to be something that is not going to be perfect about them and not going to be perfect about your parenting. And we all mess up. There's definitely things that I wish I did differently. And I'm also reacting to how I was raised by my parents, and trying to learn from the things that impacted me that they did, and doing things different. But in that sense, I always know that I'm going to try to focus on something else, and something else is still going to be a problem. So it's always going to be a challenge, and nothing's ever going to be perfect, to go on that theme again. But I think that the best thing about parenting is that you learn how to lose control of your life and be okay with it. Because when you're on your own, like, everything can fit into this own box, and you only have to watch out for yourself. And it all changes when you become a parent, and it's scary, but it's also like the most rewarding thing. So I'm excited.
It's going to be a really hard lesson in improv.
Yeah, but I think it actually will improv will probably help. I think if I would have had improv before I had kids, maybe I wouldn't have been so like high strung. When I came home from the hospital, I was like, I don't have the right size clothes. I have to go to Toys R Us and buy new clothes. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know if it was like postpartum, I'm just like crying at the store. I'm like, I don't have enough. I'm so tired and I have to buy clothes. But I did it because I just was like in this mindset of trying to live the life I was before I was a parent. And then I got over it, and it was fine, but it was definitely a transition. So
it's a big adventure, a big challenge for sure. But luckily you have about 9 months to prepare for it from the time that you actually know that it's going to happen. Exactly. So it's not something that happens overnight. I think if you within a week had to be ready to be a parent, I think
that would be stressful.
I would feel very, very, very sorry for everybody who's becoming parents.
Yeah.
Especially because you can't really plan so much ahead on when it's actually going to happen.
Exactly. And that's the one thing too. It was like, there's so many things that you can plan. And this is just something where you're like, nope, unless you induce, which is a different story. All right. You want to ask me another one?
Sure. Let's see. Let me pick a random one too.
Yeah, it's like I don't know how deep these questions go.
This is very, very fitting. When was the last time you failed?
Oh, and like, what's the definition of failure?
Well, you decide what you want to share and how you want to share it.
I mean, aside from the macaroni incident yesterday, the last time I failed, I mean, it had to be this morning, but what was it? I think I started doing this, Oprah and Deepak Chopra do this 21-day meditation challenge. So I'm doing that. And my goal was to meditate every day, first thing in the morning. So I'm on day 3 and I've already failed getting it done in the morning yesterday and today. I was like, I got to do it before the show. And I didn't, but I'm going to do it after the show. So I haven't failed in respect of when or actually doing the challenge, but I've failed in terms of setting my intention to do it in the morning. Like last night, I literally did it right before I went to sleep. I did it, then I got up, brushed my teeth, and then went to bed. So I guess better late than never, but it's definitely not the way that I want it to be. So I need to figure out how to get back on that train before day 21 is over, or maybe just before tomorrow. So that'll be my failure.
As soon as you break the chain of staying committed to doing it every day, it's really hard to get back on. I know that from like things like going to the gym. Like as soon as you miss like 1 or 2 times that you said you're going to go, it's really hard to go the third time, especially when it's raining outside.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many excuses. So, so that's mine. Should we do one more each?
Sure. If we have the time, let's do it.
Yeah. I keep on pulling this one and there's like stuff about like worst kiss and first kiss and whatnot, like whenever I open it, but that was describe your worst kiss. I don't want to do that one. Okay. It's harder for, I feel like your cards have a lot bigger words. There's a lot of white space. And it's hard to, so it's like hard to, okay. So when was the last time you were angry and how did you resolve the situation?
So I'm a very patient person, which means I don't usually get angry very often. But when I do, it kind of comes as like a hurricane of emotions. And I'm actually not sure if I remember the last time because I've been doing pretty well in not reacting to when things are happening and just like taking a deep breath as the first step, which really helps. So I'm trying to think. Like angry is also such a strong word. Like
for sure.
Yeah. For me, there have been times. Trying to think. I don't know if I have one that stands out.
That's good.
Yeah.
When was the last time I was angry? Yesterday? No.
See, I don't have kids yet, so there's not that many triggers.
Yeah.
Actually, I might well, I don't know if I would call it angry. I was a little bit angry or upset at this whole situation that happened this morning with my wife being like 7 months pregnant and our cat not wanting to let us sleep in, but like wanting to get fed early in the morning. And then of course I have a deep sleep and I feel like my wife already has the mother hormones kicking in. Like she's really trying to nurture our cat like it is a baby. Like she wakes up with every little sound like, oh, I think he's constipated. I can hear it. Like I didn't even hear that our cat went to the washroom. So she spilled his food because she was trying to deal with a couple of things at once while I was still sleeping and pretending not to hear anything. So I think it was more her being angry, but then I was angry because we're upset that I had to get up and fix it before I was actually wanting to get up or needed to get up. And then once I cleared everything up, I was up and my wife went back to bed and our cat went to bed too.
Yeah, I can't go back to sleep once I wake up either. So I hear that. I get really annoyed. So okay, that's good. All right, one more question, and then we'll wrap up the show.
Okay. What is this one? Ooh. What was the last big lie you've told, or small lie? You don't have to go big lie.
Oh, I do that to my kids all the time. Lies. So I feel like I'm trying to think about like the last one. I do a lot of the lies with my kids where it's like, oh, you're going to or I'll say like, oh, you're gonna lose whatever privileges because, and which is totally a lie, even though like, because I'm just like a wuss when it comes to threats, right? So I'll be like, if you don't do this, then I'm not going, I'm gonna take it away for 5 days. And it's like 5 hours. So in my household, there's a big fight about technology. And it's funny because my kids just went on a week-long sans technology trip with to Iowa with my in-laws, and they were totally fine apparently, unless they're just saying that it was great and they have higher tolerance than we do. But there's just a lot of times where I will do a lot of empty threats and say, oh, if you're not, if you're not going to do this, then blah, 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 I'm going to take this away. And that's what it ends up being. So I never, like, I don't think I ever hold to it. I can maybe do one day. That's like really how much I can hold to, because it takes discipline, right? When you're going to discipline your children, you have to discipline yourself to actually hold to whatever it is. And when kids are like screaming and complaining and whatever, it's like, you just want it to stop. So you're like, okay, just eat 2 more bites and I'll give you your iPad or something. So that's a lot of where the lies come in. And my kids are starting to call me out on it, which is not fun. So that doesn't have a long lifespan left. They're like, you said, one of the times I think I told my son that he wasn't going to get shots and we had to get flu shots. And he's like, you lied to me. You said we weren't going to get shots until I was 10. You're a liar. And he's like screaming at me. And as they're restraining him, trying to give him a flu shot, that didn't feel good. I didn't actually lie, but he felt like I was. So, okay, right. There's that story.
Well, I'm looking forward to having kids.
Yes. I just like ruined it for you.
Well, I'm still very, I guess, idealistic and positive, positive thinking about how I'll be as a parent. But I totally know that there will be these times where you just want it to stop and you're having a hard time sticking to what you said you're going to do.
A year from now, I'm going to ask you that same question. When's the last time you were angry?
Yeah.
You'll be like, this morning.
I hope that it'll take at least a few years before situations like that happen.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be great. You'll enjoy like that first like month of just the newness of being a parent, and then the real stuff will kick in. You're like, oh, this is hard. But I mean, some people have a great time, and I mean, I think the fact that you have a lot of patience right now is good, because if you don't have patience going in, it might be a little bit harder. But it's a good lesson that you will learn. That's for sure. So, all right.
I'm practicing with our cat, who just showed up and is crying and probably going to throw a tantrum in a second if I don't feed him.
My dog just disappeared. Oh no, he's behind me. So, okay, well, let's wrap up the show. There's one last thing that I want to do, which is I always share a Ask April Anything questions. These are a bunch of questions that people have asked me on multiple occasions, and I'm just answering them here. And so this was something that somebody shared. They were curious about. We can both respond to it. But the first one, the question is, I'm cruising on my boat. I don't know what that means, but, and this is like from a long time ago. I'm cruising on my boat. How can I look for a potential life partner who enjoys the same lifestyle? So think about that. Let's both quickly like answer that question. And while you're thinking about the answer, for those of you who are watching this, and if you ever have any questions that you want to be featured on a future show, one of my future newsletters or whatnot, you can go to thecheerfulmind.com/AAA and ask literally anything. Keep it clean, but you can literally ask anything. So, okay, so I'm cruising on my boat. How can I look for a potential life partner who enjoys the same lifestyle? Jan, you want to answer first?
First of all, park your boat somewhere, because if you're alone on your boat, you're not going to meet anyone. But I would say, I would start with figuring out what really makes you happy, like what what excites you, what are the things that you like doing, and what are maybe locations that other people hang out that like to do the same thing. Like if you like to go hiking, maybe you have to go to a place where a lot of people go hiking. If you like to go dancing, maybe you should start going out to like dance clubs. And that might be a first step to find somebody that you have something in common with. But I would say the next step really is asking some deep questions or getting to know a person better, because in the end, you want to make sure that you align on the values and not just on your hobbies.
Amen. I love that. The only thing that I would add to that, because I think all of that was great, is just start with you. Figure out who you are first, because you can't find a potential life partner if you don't really understand and truly love yourself. And that was a huge thing that I learned in all of my days of just going through all the crazy relationships and realizing that when I was my true self, the right potential life partner showed up. So be you do you, and that person will be naturally attracted and will show up. So all right, Jan, thank you so much for being on the show with me. And thank all of you for if you're watching either on the replay, your vibe attracts your tribe. Yes. I hope you enjoyed our cheerful conversation today. We totally went deep, asked some more questions, and the conversation is probably not going to stop here. I will share the link to check out Ask Deep Questions. And you guys all know this vulnerability is sexy. I've always shared that out. But feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And we'll see you on the next show. We're going to take another month-long break because I'm going to go camping the next second Wednesday of the month. So yes, we're going to be in Tennessee and Kentucky. That'll be fun. And so I'll catch you sometime, I think it's later August. And stay tuned for also my delayed but soon to be done Alaska episode, which will be a special bonus episode. So thank you guys for coming, and we'll see you next time. All right. And then I just have to shut this down. All right. Bye, guys.